Rahul Gandhi did something smart, and since it's a first in over 10 years, we must explain it. On February 11th, 2026, the floor of the Lok Sabha became a battlefield over a single word equals. The debate surrounding the India-US Interim Trade Deal has been framed in terms of patriotism and betrayal. एकदम border one चल रहा है. But if we strip away the rhetoric, we are left with massive mathematical contradiction. Today, we are not talking about opinions. We are auditing the documents. On one side, a US executive order that treats Indian trade access as a conditional variable. On the other, the Indian foreign policy that treats energy sourcing as a sovereign constant. These two numbers don't actually add up. So we are going to look at the $10 oil delta, the snapback trigger, and the 1700% increase in required US imports. By the end of this video, you will see why strategic autonomy isn't a feeling, it's a line item in a budget that is currently under immense pressure. तो देखते हैं how does the math add up, and is it really a डर का माहौल, या is it a 2002 NatWest final at Lords when India chased down 326 against England, where every ball counts. So let's start with the most basic equation in the Indian economy, the landing cost of crude oil. For the last year, India's bedrock policy has been buying Russian Urals crude at a structural discount of roughly $10 to $12 per barrel, below the global Brent benchmark. So this isn't just a win for refiners, it's a reason that your petrol hasn't hit 120 rupees per liter. We've covered this in a different video, so you may just go and watch that. But now let's come back and look at the math of the new trade deal. While Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal insists that India will continue to buy oil wherever it's cheap and non-sanctioned, the US document signed by President on February 7th explicitly removes 25% penalty tariff on the condition that India halts Russian oil purchases. If India shifts its 1.2 million barrels per day from Russia to market rate, US Shale or Mid-Eastern crude, the mathematical inference is an immediate $12 million daily loss in efficiency. That is a $4.38 billion in a year in pure geopolitical tax. So when Rahul Gandhi speaks of equals, he is pointing to this asymmetry. India pays a $4 billion premium to secure a tariff reduction that the US can theoretically revoke tomorrow. So Rahul Gandhi ने एक बात smart बोली. This brings us to the most dangerous variable in the 2026 framework, the snapback clause. Unlike a formal free trade agreement, which is a treaty ratified by law, this is an interim framework governed by US executive order. Mathematically, this deal is a conditional function. It's an if-else. And in the US document, the tariff reduction from 50% to 18% is coded as a performance metric. The US Secretary of Commerce has been given a monitoring mandate. If Indian refiners resume Russian oil purchases, the executive kill switch can be flipped. If India invests billions into manufacturing infrastructure based on an 18% tariff rate, but the US resets that tariff to 50% because of a bedrock foreign policy decision on Russia, that infrastructure becomes a stranded asset. India is currently in a high risk zone where the manufacturing growth is collateralized by its energy choices. This is where the strategic autonomy argument moves from a philosophical classroom to the spreadsheet. So we are essentially leasing the market access using our energy sovereignty as a security deposit. Simple. हमने एक साहूकार के पास सोना गिरवी रख दिया है, which is Indian economy. सोने की चिड़िया को गिरवी रख दिया है, basically in simple words. So let's talk about the 500 billion intention. On February 10th, the White House revised its fact sheet. They changed the word commitment to intents. So which means they were saying that India is not now committed to invest $500 billion in US, but it is intending to do it. Okay, so this was a diplomatic win for India, but did the math change? No, right? Because India currently imports about 50 billion worth of goods from US every year. And to reach 500 billion over the next 5 years, that number has to hit 100 billion per year. And India doesn't have this extra 50 billion lying around to spend. To meet this intent, India must displace its current suppliers. In aviation, we will have to start buying Boeing instead of Airbus. In energy, we'll have to start buying US LNG instead of Qatari gas. And in technology, we'll have to start buying NVIDIA GPUs instead of developing domestic silicon pipelines. So some adjustment has to be made. And this creates a monospony risk. Monospony means when your supplier is concentrated. So by the virtue of concentration, the supplier is able to dictate the price. So India, by concentrating $100 billion of annual procurement into a single country to satisfy a trade deal, we are mathematically reducing our own leverage. And if you have any one supplier for your planes, your gas, and your AI chips, you are not an equal. You are a captive market. And that is the core of the loss of autonomy argument. We are engineering a trade deficit to save a trade surplus. And somehow, surprisingly, Mr. Rahul Gandhi actually caught it. And finally, we look at the variable that will matter the most in 2030. Data. In his February 11th speech, Rahul Gandhi called data the new power. Mathematically, he is right. India produces the highest volume of raw data in the world. In the 2026 deal, the US has pushed for digital trade discipline, which is code for no data localization. If Indian data is stored and processed in US data centers under tax holidays granted in 2026 budget, the value add of AI happens in the US, not India. So what do we gain? We gain a 17% relative advantage over China in selling physical goods like shirts and shoes, but we potentially cede the 1000% value multiplier of the AI economy. And this is the most profound inequality in the US-India deal. The US buys our physical labor at 18% tariff, while we give them our digital intelligence at 0% tariff. So finally, let's talk about how this actually affects your portfolio. क्योंकि पैसा ही तो सब कुछ है इस दुनिया में. For the Indian stock market, this trade deal functions exactly like a high interest mortgage on a prime property. It's not a gloom and doom या डर का माहौल जैसे Rahul Gandhi is saying and everybody in the opposition is framing it. It's almost like a performance bonus. Let's come back to the topic of how it affects your portfolio. First, there is a good premium. In the short term, sectors like textile and pharma are seeing massive re-rating. By escaping the 50% tariff cliff, their earnings visibility has improved by 30 to 40%. And this is why Nifty 50 targets are being pushed to 30,000. The market is front-loading the gains from capturing supply chains that are going to move out of China because of the tariff inequality. Secondly, there is a limited upside. The premium is capped by the inflation liability. Since the deal pressures a shift away from discounted Russian oil, the input costs for the Nifty heavyweights in auto, cement, and chemical sectors will structurally be higher. And that prevents a full-blown bull run because the profit margins are going to be squeezed from the energy side even as the sales may grow on the export side. And lastly, there is this crash risk. So Nifty is now trading on a geopolitical multiplier. If the bedrock of the Indian foreign policy eventually collides with that of the snapback clause, the resulting tariff hike would cause a systematic repricing. And you know what a snapback clause is? It's as good as Trump's mood today versus Trump's mood tomorrow. A sudden jump from 18% to 50% tariff would be an overnight destruction of the export competitiveness, potentially leading to, let's say, a 15 to 20% gap down in the indices. But that might be short-lived, and let's say that Modi and team and everybody is trying to not get that clause invoked. Okay. So here is the cold truth as I see it. Did we lose our strategic autonomy? Mathematically, we have actually mortgaged it. But by giving that mortgage, we have gained a temporary manufacturing window to beat China. And that is the profit. We have accepted an energy premium, a purchase mandate, and a digital sovereignty gap, which will act as a cost to ensure that our factories actually grow in the next 5 years. This deal is a win only if India can use these 5 years to become industrially so powerful that by 2031 we don't need USS's permission to buy oil from Russia or store data in Mumbai or anything else. Right now, we are in a race against our own contracts. By the end of this video, I have put a full comparison of the US executive order versus the MEA statement in the description below. So read the math for yourself and let me know, is a 17% edge over China worth a 4 billion energy tax yearly, obviously. So that's it. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for your time. But before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You know, who else is here who's giving you such exciting commentary? So bye.